Yeah, then I'll start to say a warm welcome to Christian to the Swedish Feng Shui podcast.
Thank you. Good morning, Therese. Good to
Good
be
morning. I'm really happy that you want to be here. I've heard about you during my time at Nordic School of Feng Shui and afterwards. So you're a big inspiration for a lot of people.
Thank you.
But I think for those who don't know who you are, do you want to tell them who are you and what do you do?
Oh,
That small question.
how long do we have? Oh, well, I came to London from Cyprus when I was 2.5 years old, and brought up in North London. My father was a carpenter. And eventually I was to learn, a lot of building trades because he ran his own building company. I was aware of energies and ghosts from a very young age and a lot of fear around that kind of dark energy. At 8 years old, I started learning music to play the piano with my older brother, who's slightly older than me. Who's an amazing musician, and so are his daughter and son, my nephew and niece, who helped me produce my current music album that we spoke about. What happens next? Major hit points in life. At around 12, and I didn't remember this until a few years ago, I was so thirsty for knowledge. I started to study with the Rosicrucians, which is a very esoteric, deep, philosophical knowledge system, online. There wasn't online then. We're talking about 1963.
Yeah, the internet
Long
was.
time ago. So correspondence by mail, normal post that people perhaps don't know about anymore.
On
Um,
paper.
yeah, paper, real paper. So
Yeah.
I did that, and I remember this was like not what my parents would like, because they were very sort of, good, basic religious people. And so I would study under the bedclothes at night with a torch, reading this esoteric knowledge, and also started a correspondence course on psychology. So this is when I was 12, and it was like, and I'm thinking there was a deep memory that needed to be awoken. um so that kind of continued, and I was about 18, 19. I was introduced to a philosophy school in London that I ended up spending 25 years in, studying meditation, Sanskrit, sacred sounds, sacred geometry, Plato, everything that I now teach in my academy teaching. And the Sanskrit language, the alphabet, the chants, which many people are aware of, the Indian Sanskrit Vedic chants. And yeah, and then life and marriage and 3 children and
Wow.
houses and what happens. But at the same time I started studying in the philosophy school, I started my architecture training, which took about 7 years. And halfway through that, I'm thinking, why am I doing this? I didn't understand, because it's so hard, it's such a lot of study. But now, of course, I understand, because it's all part of what I do now.
Yeah.
And people, the only architecture I do now is when people want design advice for projects, whether it's a house, but usually bigger projects or healing centers. And one of my biggest projects at the moment is designing from complete scratch land on a Greek island, a healing center. Complete. The client has actually been on my 1-year academy training, and I've known him for a while. He's Greek, and he's bought all this land, and we're going over in October to really connect with the land and start the full design process. We've already started bits of it.
Wow. Sounds really
It
exciting.
will be everything. The sacred geometry will have labyrinths, special rooms with different sonic sound vibrations for certain healing, because different frequencies heal different parts of the body and different diseases. It's the ancient, they say it's the new medicine, but it's the ancient medicine, sound. So sound has always been a great part of my work. And when I was introduced to Feng Shui in the mid-90s, I started teaching sacred sound, and there weren't many people doing it at that time. And now, of course, there are so many sound healers and workshops. And so I would do workshops on sacred sound and sacred geometry. And so with the architecture, I was doing a lot of Indian restaurants, because my father, that's all he built as a carpenter builder. He had his own business. And so as a teenager, I would work on all the restaurant sites, physically laboring, dirty, moving stuff, crawling into roofs. And so I learned a lot of the trades physically, which was really useful, and particularly woodwork, which I love. I love working with wood. So that got me into that sort of building side. And then years and years later, and when I started really working with buildings and Feng Shui, I became aware that all those buildings I worked in with my father, I would be picking up and soaking up the memory of everything that was in the building.
So you could feel it as
a
young kid.
I could feel it, but I didn't rationalize it or understand it. But now, of course, that's my work. It's going to a building and reading it, reading the emotions, all the different layers and levels of people's lives and spirits and stuck energies, ghosts, darker energies. I just see it instantly, when I walk into a building. Or if I'm working remotely over the screen, and I'm not doing that with your house because you're not giving me, asking me, I could just go into your house now and read everything.
So you can do it even if you do it online?
Oh, yeah. And most of my work is online now because it's so worldwide.
Yeah.
It's not practical to travel everywhere, and cost of it for clients, of course. So working online is really powerful, and if we understand that in truth there's no space and time, everything is now, and so I can connect through the screen to your energy field, and often I will burn incense my end, and people will say I can smell it, and it comes across the screen, which is extraordinary. I love that.
Strong.
And even when people, there was one occasion when I worked with a woman in some country, I forget, and when her mother came in the evening, she said, "What's that smell? Is that smell of incense that we burnt earlier that day?" So it carries, it's vibration, it's all vibration, which is lovely. So using vibration through the voice, through sacred sound, through sacred instruments, the gong, the Tibetan bowl, all those instruments are really powerful.
Yeah.
So with my father, I ended up designing a lot of Indian restaurants. And the biggest joke around that, Therese, is that every Indian restaurant that ever has been designed in England is a copy of mine. And how I know that is really fascinating, because I designed those Indian arches and the columns, very traditional sort of Indian. And I drew this up, and I've still got the original tracing paper before computer drawing came, so really by hand. And I got it wrong. It wasn't an Indian. It was more from the Alhambra, which is very more Moorish. So I got it wrong. And so every Indian restaurant in this country that I designed and that everybody has copied is incorrect.
They're wrong.
It's wrong. And I think every time I go past one, there's still some up, I just laugh at it, because it's like a mistake I made and everyone's copied. Anyway,
That's a really good story, though.
I think so, yeah. And it's you know, they still look good, you know. So from that, I went from Indian restaurants to designing airport interiors and shops and duty-free shops, tax-free shops, pharmacies, restaurants in airports. And in the UK, not many people know, there are about 36 airports in the UK. And I think I designed around 33 of them, or
Wow.
shops, or units within about 33 with the company I was working for at the time. So so that was great fun.
Did you know Feng Shui when you designed all of these?
Good point. When you look at the designs, and you can see them on my website under the architectural projects page, I was doing it intuitively. Sacred geometry has always been an interest of mine. And in 1971, when I started architecture and joined the philosophy school, my stepfather, or actually it was my ex-stepfather-in-law, to be precise, yet complicated life. He introduced me to going to sacred sites like Stonehenge and Avebury. So I used to start going there in the early 70s. And so sacred geometry, you know, was there from the beginning for me. And even at school, as a 6-7-year-old, my favorite subject was geometry. And I've actually still got my old school books from then.
Wow.
So
but of course, geometry, everything is very logical, or how do you say, when you know?
Rational, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, emotion and love is purely geometric, which is extraordinary. If we look at the harmonics of the heart, it's the golden mean ratio, which is in numbers 1.618. It's kind of like the proportion of a business card or a credit card is a golden mean proportion. But the actual geometry, if I can show you here, that's actually the golden mean spiral, which is the harmonic of the heart. So when the heart is in love, that's the sacred geometry. So you could actually translate love as pure sacred geometry. And also there are so many examples, you know, and again, this is the courses that I run, even the short ones, you know, the Light Whispers course that I run, I mentioned to you. I show slideshows with, you know, like the rose and even the cactus, which has had a bad press in Feng Shui. They're all golden mean ratio. And so if we look at those plants, all nature grows to the golden mean because it's the procreative energy of the universe.
Yeah.
The feminine principle, whereas the masculine are crystals, hexagonal. So feminine pentagram, pent 5, masculine 6, hexagram, crystals. So the two together is what the whole story of the universe and all secret societies are about, because we're talking about the balance of masculine, feminine all the time. And it's about the merge of masculine, feminine. That's the entire story of the universe and of my current book. That's all it's about. And so in relationships, what do? It's about man, woman, or whatever sex you want to sort of, you know. But it's the masculine, feminine. Even between two women or two men, one will be masculine, one will be feminine. And so it's that desire of the heart, the desire of the being to merge to unity. So we start from unity, we go to duality, and you can see this in sacred geometry in buildings. It's beautiful. Chartres Cathedral is one of my favorite buildings. And that building, you know, in France, just south of Paris, contains all the knowledge of the universe in one building. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Can't go into it in detail now, how, but all you have to do is to be in those buildings, which are on a very powerful sacred spot on the earth, on crossings of ley lines, earth energy vortexes, which are very ancient. You know, the Druids worked on that land before at Sharp Cathedral, and there are various churches and cathedrals built there. But the current one now is from 1195 is the current one. And very powerful site. And, you know, it's built by the Templars. The feminine energy of the Magdalene is there, and all you have to do is be there, and it will teach you everything you need to know if you allow it to come in. And just to share that about 20 years ago, I went with 4 people and we spent 4 days just living in the cathedral, being with it. And on one of the days, I was getting really frustrated because I couldn't, I wanted the knowledge of the cathedral. It's like, give it to me now, you know, it's not my best thing. And we're sitting in a cafe over the road, having a coffee.
Yeah.
And a lady I was with just said, what's the matter? I said, I'm just not getting it. And she said one phrase, have you asked?
No, you just wanted it.
I just wanted it. And everything I've been teaching people, you know, in the whole Feng Shui world and consultations and teaching, you know, you got to ask permission, you know. And it's like, it missed me. I hadn't. And as soon as I heard that, I asked, of course, and then suddenly all these holographic symbols started to cascade down into my crown. They were like, you know, light symbols, light codes. And this is what my current book is about, the 12 light codes of creation that came from another planet to Earth. And it gets very complex and interesting, but the journey. And so all these light codes, and I knew them, but I couldn't, my head could not understand them. And there were so many, I had to let go and let it drop into my heart, and it just blew me apart. It was like one of those life-changing moments that just transformed who I was. I had to let go of who I thought I was and just, you know, let the heart open. And there've been lots of heart issues in, you know, well, childhood and whatever. So, and so it sort of blew that apart, and then went back into the cathedral and just sat looking at the south rose window, which is hexagram. The north is feminine pentagram. And the window, and the windows at Sharp Cathedral, the stained glass is the ultimate in quality and alchemy. Nothing has ever been made since like that. And all you have to do is receive the light through it, and the magic transforms you. And I remember even now the energy of the light going, and it was like the geometry was changing my geometry.
Yeah.
I had a choice again. Do I fight it, or do I just let it do its job and transform me? And that's, and tears and tears and tears, you know, running, you know, she's just sitting there, and these 2 old French ladies coming along and saying, "Are you all right, darling?" I can't in French, you know.
But of course, I imagine that's one of those moments when, because that's maybe not as powerful, but when I discovered Feng Shui and I started to learn, it was like, now I can't go back to my old truth, because it's like a black hole that's just, it's sucking me in. I need to know more, and I need to, because there's so much out there that we don't understand. And when you start to discover it, it's a whole new world. Everything.
And you can't go back.
No,
once
it's
your
impossible.
eyes are open, it's like you can't go back to sleep, you know.
No. And I don't want to go back.
No, because you're not satisfied with just normal everyday things anymore. You know, the universe is so rich and deep, and especially when we study subjects, you know, within the Feng Shui system, and especially sacred geometry, that is the one subject that I teach in my short course as well as the 1-year one. It's the one subject that transforms people, the sacred geometry one. Because you see the geometry, you feel it. For me, working with people is not teaching, it's sharing. so that people experience, you know, everything that I know and comes through me. And it's all emotion. All knowledge is about emotion. You can't transform a space in somebody's life without changing the emotion of the space. This is where perhaps Feng Shui doesn't work for a lot of people. You have to tune in with the emotion of the space. And to make a change, you have to zero the energies, the patterns, the layers of life, and then put back, as we talk about in Feng Shui, you place something in one of the 9 areas of life, whatever you want to enhance, you place it with intention. What's often missing is you have to feel the intention, not just think, I'm placing it to get a relationship.
No, it's just an empty word then.
Yeah. Otherwise, it stays in the head.
Yeah.
And the heart is, what, 1,000 times more powerful to attract. So if you want to attract a relationship, money, career, whatever it is in life, you've got to feel the emotion of it. And when I work with people doing consultations, that's what I get them to do. You know, read the space, you know, because with space clearing, a lot of people say, oh, let's clear the space or get someone in and maybe you go out for the day, let someone clear it. That's crazy, because space clearing, Feng Shui, is about you.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do it for someone. You got to do it with. And people don't call me because they probably know that's what I'll say to them. But if somebody says, can you do it for me? It's no, I can't. I'll work with you. And that's really powerful, because it's about helping somebody take responsibility for something that is not working in life. I can't fix it for you. I can't give you a doctor's prescription and
You can't take a pill and everything will be good. and I think that's something that's, I believe it's really important, because if you don't have the connection with the feeling, and you like we said, plant an intention with your head only, then your heart will still feel and believe that if you feel like you're not enough to how do you say, then you won't ever reach your goals, because
and you have to look at the patterns that are running someone's life. If you don't think you're worth it, if you're not worth having a good relationship, or you're not worth having money,
you won't get it.
People will say to me, because I asked him, you know, oh, well, you know, I'm not making enough money. I want my wealth area enhanced. That's great. But the question is, what's your belief about money? Oh, it's dirty. It's evil. And I say, where did that come from? Oh, my father used to say that, you know, and it's like in my brain, you know. And if you believe that, you will never attract money. You will always push it away. So the work is with the person. The house is just a reflection of your inner house. You can't fix the outer house. You know, it's like space clearing, or you cannot clear clutter unless you clear the inner clutter. So people who come in and space clear or move furniture, which people think Feng Shui is about moving furniture still, which is really old-fashioned nonsense. But, you know, you can't do it for someone, because, you know, you get these TV programs where they go in and, you know, the person goes away for a week and they renovate the place. And when the person comes back, either they're really happy or their life is devastated, because their life is changed. And they don't recognize who they are, because everything outside them that reflects what was inside is gone. And when they come back after about a month to see how they're doing, the person's usually gone to secondhand shops or rubbish tips and bought back the rubbish, because that's what they recognize is about who they are. So, you know, it's such a, you know, I call it the psychotherapy of space, really, the work I do. It's pure psychology. Feng Shui is a great system, of course it is. Classical Feng Shui or black hat Tibetan Feng Shui, they're all systems, but the beauty of the Tibetan black hat system, which is the bagua from the front door, and the 9
Yeah.
areas,
Yeah.
which is different from the classical Chinese, which is compass. So with the Tibetan from the front door, we say that, top left is wealth, top right is relationships. And because you're believing that and knowing that within that system, you're creating the reality of that. So, it works really powerful now in our age, or the last 20, 30 years, because we're more into the psychological aspect of life. Whereas before, certainly my parents and their, parents, they didn't have this whole sort of psychology thing, not until sort of Freud and, Jung came along and sort of opened up that whole discussion.
And I love that today, when you look at the scientific work, and today we have neurodesign, and we have in biological studies also show how much everything is stick together with energies.
Absolutely, it's all energy, biogeometry, and one of the talks I did, and in fact I will be doing at the British Society of Dowsers later this month, is the title is The Epigenetic Consciousness Matrix of Buildings.
That sounded difficult, advanced.
Epigenetics, it's how it changes our genetics through the environment. In other words, it's kind of another aspect of Feng Shui, or Feng Shui is an aspect of it, because we influence our environment, or does it influence us? It's both. But it can change our DNA and our whole molecular structure through our space, but our space is our belief, so it's like a cycle. So
that's exactly what I thought about when you talked about your that moment you had when the lights came down.
But I'm talking a lot, so you ask me anything more you think your listeners might.
But I know you're called the house whisperer.
Yes.
And you mentioned also that you can feel when you go into, or when you have your consultations, you can feel the energies, both from the old energies and the new ones. How do you feel it? How does the energies talk to you? Do you feel it like, is it a physical sensation? Is it thoughts? How do you?
Well, everyone's got, all aspects of all the 5 senses or 6 senses. I feel it in my body. I feel it in my whole energy field. If there's something heavy in a house, I feel it in my stomach. So the body reacts, and so the body is the instrument. So if we're dowsing, the dowsing rods, or the the pendulum are the the tools, but we are the instrument, so we're receiving. But also I see, like in my mind's eye, spirit, ghosts. I see what they're wearing. I speak with them, so we're having a conversation, and because I can see what they're wearing, I know what time period in history they are. It's fascinating. So it's seeing, hearing, feeling, sometimes smelling, because when you have dark energy and or a ghost that wants to be nasty, it will let out like a sulfur smell, like a bad egg smell. So all those senses, they've always been there for me. So when you say, how do you, I don't know, I just do. That's my machine. It's and some people, I think everyone has the ability, and I teach people how to do that on my training. But some
that was
people,
my next question.
Say again?
That was my next question. If you believe that everyone can learn to do this.
I can. And I see that, working with, you know, my academy members, even on the short course, you know, the 8-week short course, but especially in the 1-year one, by the end of that, you know, people are doing consultations in the way I do them after 1 year, which is extraordinary. So I'm really, really happy with that, because they soak up my knowledge, even if I don't speak it while we're teaching. But we're teaching like we're speaking now, always live. I don't like to record any teachings. For me, it's about interacting with the person on the screen. And there's
It's a whole other energy when you're live.
Yeah, live energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's always never more than 9 people, you know, in a group. So it's always very focused. So yeah, so all that information just always comes. Even when I pick up a phone or an email from someone and they write a few words, sometimes they write a few pages.
Me too.
And you know, I just get what's going on straight away. I can see into their life, into the house. And one of the telling things is the voice. That's why I always like to speak to somebody and say, look, let's have a brief conversation, then I can tell me more. And from their voice, because the voice carries all the knowledge you need. And I know from that first conversation, whether it's on the phone or over the internet somehow, Zoom, I know what's going on and what needs to be done. So
so if I ask you right now, when I have you live here,
yes,
what can you sense when you're can you feel something here in my home or
yes,
with me?
I can, but you may not want me to share that live with your audience right now.
Shoot, I don't have any secrets. Or do I?
I would say there are certain areas of your life you're not happy with. And it probably reflects in some of the rooms.
Oh yeah, I'm sitting in one of them right now.
Yeah, there's one. I mean, I kind of see it like up there, which when we're on screen, I realize could actually be mirror image, so up there from you. But over there, that's sort of got a much darker energy than the rest of the house. Yeah. But ask me something else.
If you would give me some advice on like how to handle these challenges, where do I start, or what would you tell me to do in this situation?
With any space, as I would advise anyone or working with them, is to become aware. What, you know, it's easier. It's not so easy doing it for yourself, but you know, if you're working with someone, I would be helping you to well, from whatever issues you're telling me are going on, I will be trying to get you to see the root cause. So if something is unhappy, for example, in a relationship, what is that relationship about? Why have you chosen a particular relationship with someone? Is it reflecting something to do with your father or your mother? Something to do in childhood that you're trying to retrieve that, you know, isn't happy, that kind of thing. And once you see it, there's a certain psychological, I call it a quantum timeline process, to actually take you back to before a particular event. Because in psychology, and this is something I started to study psychotherapy for a while, because I wanted to get a post-grad, you know, diploma in psychotherapy. Because I just love the subject, and that's how I got introduced to, well, I knew about Freud and Jung is incredible. He's very spiritual, you know, into the Vedic system. So, and when I studied Jung, you know, it was like, oh, he's talking the same language I've always talked, and you know, so I love that approach. So I would take so in psychology we got a concept called repetition. So we're always going to be repeating the same thing, the same mistake. And depending on your astrology, and when you look at the 9-star key astrology, certain people are more prone to repeating their mistakes than others. And, you know,
Correct.
I don't know what your numbers are, but that would be interesting to. So the number 7, you know, is prone to repeating their mistakes. One of my numbers is 7. One of my daughters has double 7.
Wow. Bless her.
Another daughter's got a double 3. If that means anything to your listeners. But so in psychology, we've got this concept of repetition. So we're always going to repeat the same mistake until we see it and have the conscious energy to say, okay, I'm now going to change my life. I'm going to change that. But there's a certain process I use that takes you back where you find the most traumatic emotion of your life, and you will find that it's repeated and repeated and repeated in different forms. And it's not to punish us. And in fact, that repetition can go back to previous lives as well. Yeah. So we bring it forward into this life, into childhood, keep repeating it until we get to where we are now. And it's not there, as I say, to punish us, like people think karma is, you know, a punishment thing. It's not. We, in conjunction with our guides and our angels and helpers, create our next moment, create our future, so that we can meet it in order to deal with what we haven't dealt with. So that's the beauty of it. So I always say there are no such things as accidents. An accident is an event we didn't expect to happen or didn't want. But it's an event that we, our consciousness and our guides and angels have created for us, so we can meet it and say, okay, am I going to do that again today? Or shall I wake up and do it different? Yeah. And this is kind of part of the work I do with people, to clear the old patterns. And you do that magically through the heart energy, through the golden mean, because the heart is a very pure, powerful geometry. And so ultimately what we're saying is that love conquers all. And it's so true.
Yeah.
It really is. But it depends how pure the love is, and is it resonating at the highest sacred geometry level. And again, this is where sacred geometry comes in. But again, it's the emotion of love that makes the change. And so when you change that reality of that trauma point, I will say to people, you know, we can douse it. How does it feel? It's like 9 out of 10 traumatic. And then after about 10, 15 minutes of this process, how traumatic is it now? 1 or 2 or 3. So in 15 minutes, it's completely wiped, mostly wiped, the emotional impact. And then from there on, you can look in your space and you'll start to then move things around and furniture to suit your new pattern of life.
Yeah.
But until you do that, you're just going to move things around in the same old pattern and belief. So that's my idea of space clearing, is inner space clearing, you know.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And I can really, without saying too much about my private life, but I'm usually like an open book. But it's I can really, I recognize what you're saying, and I'm aware. So thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. And
Well,
this is Chloe. She always joins. Are you going to say hello?
I was so scared because the sun is shining on my screen and I don't really see, it's really dark, and I saw like a shadow in the corner. I thought it was like a
Yeah.
ghost or something. Then I saw a
She
cat's
always
tail.
joins whenever I'm on a Zoom call or teaching. She will. So there we go. Say hello.
Hi, Chloe. She's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, now let's see where to go next. I have so many questions. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Where to go?
Okay. Well, this next question. Try and be brief.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about, because when I talked to you earlier this week, and we talked about space clearing, then you mentioned something that first of all, you can't just clear energies and move furnitures and everything will be fine. But you also mentioned something that the ghosts or the energies that lives in your house is a reflection of you. And that it's not like old, how do you say, old spirits or can come from any other persons.
Well, how it works for me in my experience, actually, is that when we are attracted to go and live in a home, in a house or a flat, there are certain energies there. And so the law of attraction, whatever is going on in our inner life, is going to be reflected outside. And so I often ask this question, did you choose your house or did it choose you? And did it choose you means the energies in that house, the patterns, the ghosts, are going to have a matching pattern to your life. And so they attract each other. So it's always both. You know, it's never I found the house or the house found me. There's so many examples of it, some incredible stories. And in fact, in my House Whisperer book, there's about 200 stories of consultation with all the descriptions of, you know, how, what, and why. And so when we, so just to give you an example, in one of the stories, a woman is like wanting to be in a relationship, but she's moved to a house and she can't find a relationship. And so looking into her story, it was clear that she was in a relationship, you know, left the man or they broke up and moved to a house which had a single old lady ghost. And so they got into relationship. And this is what we do. We get into relationship with what is in our space, whether it's spirits, ghosts, just energies, and so on. And of course, once you get into relationship with an energy, and especially another person who wants your company. So this old lady ghost wanted this young lady's company, and so they were in a relationship. And so the problem is now, or was, that she can't find another man relationship.
Because she's already in a relationship with.
Already in one. And therefore, the solution is that both the client and the woman in spirit need to release each other. Otherwise, they won't find. I've got Chloe now, and I've got a picture of a sparrow on my other screen, and she's
trying to get it.
You know, otherwise, I've got to give her treats to distract her. And so many stories like that, where people are already in a relationship with another person, another woman, and that has to be released. And so in a sense, when somebody releases or you identify a spirit, a ghost in a house, I always get the owner, the client, to release that spirit, to speak with them. I can't talk to a ghost. Say, of course you can. You just talk to them in your mind. And I can hear the conversation between the client and the ghost. And everyone can do it, you know, with a bit of help. And when you get to the point, the important thing with spirit release, as I think we might have said when we spoke, is not about getting rid of. The whole concept, like space clearing or ghost busting, is very wrong. You know, you don't get rid of, because that spirit is a human being, is a soul that through trauma at the time of birth has got stuck in the in-between world and can't move on.
So you need to learn to live with it, or
well, no, you need to find out what the trauma was. What is the story? It's always about the story. You have to get to the story of that spirit and why they're stuck. And once you do that, then it's easy to then help them release. And people say, oh, send them to the light. No, they have to understand why they're stuck. You know, all this love and light stuff, great, but very new agey. Sometimes energies have to be sent somewhere else, not always to the light. It's like, you know, ET go home. You have to send an energy home to where it came from. If it's come from another dimension, it has to be sent back to that dimension. It's when it comes into our dimension that things go wrong, because it's out of resonance, out of right frequency. So we're getting into sort of like galactic layers of reality here, and galactic portals and sacred sites are often galactic portal energies, and you can travel into other dimensions. So when something comes through from another dimension, I think it may be a whole new podcast to talk about, but when it's out of place, it causes a problem. But usually, most of the time, it's a spirit that's stuck. And just to give you one example that illustrates it well, I helped somebody sell a house, and then they wanted to buy a new one. They said, could I have a look? And I just looked in my mind to the new house, and I could see a man standing in the window, just looking, waiting. So I went to him and said, well, what are you doing? He said, I'm waiting for my wife to come back from hospital. Now, I could see that this event was 100 years ago. Don't ask me how, I just know.
Yeah.
See what he's wearing, but I just get a sense, and I can tell you exactly what time period. And I said, well, you know, your wife is already dead. You have a better chance of being with her if you let go, rather than standing in this window, which for 100 years, waiting
for someone who's not coming.
And because he understood what I said, it was like, gone. But this is the importance of connecting with the spirit, with the ghost, understanding their story, and then helping them release. You certainly can't push them or ghostbust them, because when people do that through force, it shatters the soul. And then I have to put my shamanic hat on and do a soul retrieval. Hey, you know, so it's doing it with love and compassion is crucial to release a spirit.
I'm thinking that's kind of the same when you're helping customers with their homes and lives. You can't push someone through the process. You need to teach them how they can change themselves.
Absolutely.
It's kind of the same, only you apply it on the spirits.
Whether you're alive or dead, it's the same. And you have to take it in your own time. I mean, I can come into your home or somebody's home and take a breath in, connect to source, and expand the energy. Within 3 minutes, done. But a person can't handle that speed. So normally in a person's home, it's going to be 5 hours for them to do the process and do the whole Feng Shui process and the space clearing, the incense, the bells, you know, the shakers to remove the space. And the processing is for the person. So it takes time. And when I work remotely, it's usually 3 sessions over 3 weeks. So you have one session, you do space clearing, you talk about the history, and then you have a week for it to sort of cook in the background. Then you do another session, then another week, you know, processing in the background. And that I find is really powerful, perhaps more than just visiting someone and doing everything in a day. It's quite intense, you know. Most psychotherapy is like 1 hour session. You imagine doing 5 hours with someone, and you've done the work before, because as soon as somebody books a consultation, the work starts now. So I'm processing it, a client is processing it, and sometimes people phone up and say, oh, you know, life is changing, this is happening, that's happening. I said, yeah, because I do warn them, because we've already started the work.
Yeah.
And if you didn't do that, it will be too quick, you know, just to sort of turn up. If somebody says, can you come tomorrow? I say, yes, but I won't. I give it at least a week because it needs that sort of preparation time energetically.
Yeah. And that's really, because I used to say that I'm on my own trip right now with life. I'm processing things. I'm meeting feelings and memories that has been buried for a long time inside of me, and I'm seeing my home with whole new eyes. It's a whole new perspective
Yes.
since I started to learn about feng shui and everything around it. It's not just feng shui, it's life and
Life,
all
yeah,
of these thousand different perspectives you can have.
absolutely.
But it's like a new dimension to life.
Yeah.
And it's both scary and
Mm,
exhausting
mm,
when you
yeah.
start to see your life in all of these new ways.
Yes.
So
And
of
as we
course
said
it needs to,
you-
you need time, and
you-
you need to be prepared of that things can change really quick. And when maybe things changed in the same way before, but you weren't aware
yeah.
of the process, you weren't aware of these
No,
changes.
no.
But when you start to see them, everything gets so intense.
And you have to, once you start seeing, as we said, you can't go back, but it's um learning to, you know, allow the changes to happen. And a lot of people will get stuck, particularly in relationships. And I find this so often because when people come to me for either to join a workshop or consultation, 99 out of 100, it's the woman.
Yeah.
1 out of 100 is a man, but then the man has got a very feminine energy.
Yeah.
So it's the feminine, you know, who are doing all the energetic work at the moment, yeah. And the men should be supporting that, but you know, there aren't many men that are strong enough to do that.
No.
Um, so and you know, the woman says, oh, but you know, my husband or partner doesn't believe in any of this, they're skeptical. And I just say, look, you know, try and get him to be there when I come on a consult. Oh no, he's too busy, he's going to go and play golf, something more important than life.
Yeah.
Look,
Something more masculine.
yeah, yeah. I say, look, just came to, you know, just to have a cup of coffee with me. And so I turn up, you know, have a cup of coffee, and I put dowsing rods in his hands. I say, okay, now walk around with me. And as he's walking, you know, the rods are sort of, you know, crossing, because they will, with the energy compression. Because when the
Yeah.
heart of it, you know, when the space is, call it negative, there's a compression of energy. So you want to protect your heart. So the rods will close. And when your heart is open and safe, the rods open. And
Mm.
so the man's walking around and they're going, oh my God, you know, what's going on? And most of them stay the rest of the day, the consult, which
Mm.
is lovely.
That's exciting. Yeah.
And
But
men are really good dowsers, you know, there's no question. There's no reason why not. Um, so it's this sort of mind thing of, oh, we don't do that. It's, you know, but it's
yeah.
a very ancient thing, dowsing, and very, very powerful
And
tool.
I believe that when I talk to women, I can talk with a whole other language, my natural language.
Yes, yes.
And when I talk about feng shui, I don't have to feel like I can get them to understand in
Yeah.
an easy way. But when I meet a man, I need to use other words. I need to talk about scientific results, or I
Yeah.
need to talk about things that they understand. Because
Sure.
when I start to talk about these energies, I lose the man if I don't. So it's
Yeah,
a
no,
two language.
yeah, and you know, we have to speak our truth, but you know, speak it nicely. If
Yeah.
somebody can't receive it, you have to adapt your language. So it's the same with writing a book.
Yeah.
You've got to pitch it. You know, if I wrote it totally, like my current book, if I wrote it totally from my experience and language, um, it might only reach 10% of people.
Yeah.
You have to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit sexy, perhaps, you know, emotions and a bit of love. And because if you think about it, I think about it as film, because my whole past. You know, it's all about the so I'm seeing it as a movie, and my editor goes crazy because I'm writing like a movie, and she said, no, you're writing a book. I say, yes, but I'm seeing it like a movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's also interesting.
Yeah.
I believe we could talk for hours. There's so much.
Yeah, maybe do another one on another subject specifically, but there is so much. But the thing is, Therese, it's all so connected. You know, we've talked about dowsing, ghosts, sacred geometry, space clearing. I think we've touched on quite a lot, but
and of course, normally I always put some links in the podcast description, or how this, not description, it's a medical description.
Yeah.
No, but so the listeners can just click right into your webpage. And you also mentioned that you were hosting a 8-time
8-part. Yeah, I'm doing I run the 1-year academy professional training, which is every 2 weeks for a year, and people end up qualifying to do, you know, house whispering work. But then as a taster, I run an 8-part short session, which starts at the end of this month.
Yeah.
And that gives people those 8, you know, space clearing, the heart of home, dowsing, sacred geometry, healthy home, you know, what's in our home, is it, you know, affecting us negatively, and you know, they're more affordable and shorter, but still you get, you know, as much of my knowledge in those short sessions as you can. So it's a really good start, and I find a lot of people, when they do that short course, end up going on the 1-year one, you know, because they think, yes, I want the full full package. But yeah, so the link will go to my Light Whispers page, and people can contact me and book on that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of videos and information on my website, as I'm sure you've seen. So
yeah, and you can also buy your book.
You can buy the book online. Yeah, just
yeah.
need to get the copy of the book, and and that reminds me, I'm going to send you this copy and sign it for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Christian.
No,
and I have a question for you, because I
yes.
always ask my guests one last question. And if you could do one thing that you dream of right now, if you could, like, how do you say, reach it, achieve it right now, what would you do? The biggest dream.
I'm doing it.
You're doing it. So just keep doing it.
I'm doing it because it's always been there. It's creating the next part of life, of creating a sanctuary, a sacred space in a house in the country. It's getting very close to that reality. So I've been focusing on that for quite a while. And that will allow me to incorporate and share workshops in the space, in a room, rather than online.
Yeah.
Was
it in Greece?
No, in England.
In England.
In England, yeah. No, the Greek island project is a complete design from scratch of a healing center. But what I'm talking about doing here in England is similar, but probably with a ready-made country house building. And from that, you know, working the teaching, the knowledge, the video, the film project, and so on and so on. So so I don't have anything else that I'm sort of, oh, I have to do that in my life. It's like, it's happening. The new book is finished, and it's in its final editing at the moment. It'll be a few months before it's published, because my editor keeps saying, you can't write it like this, you can't say that. It's like, okay, just sort it out for me. That's your job. But no, she's very good. She's excellent. She did my House Whisperer book. So
yeah.
I mean, I've got all the information and the stories, but she organized it and edited it beautifully.
So you'll have to keep me updated
Oh,
when the book is out and when your country house, when it's ready to.
And if people go onto my website under music and go to Whispers of the Ancients, which is the title of the new book, it's also the title of the music album, and there are 22 tracks, all recorded to 432 hertz, which is sacred geometry of music.
Yeah.
And you can hear all of it for free on YouTube link or Spotify, depending on what you have. But you can listen to it for free on YouTube. And that music came through before I knew about the story of the journey. So it came first. The music sound came first in 1993. And my brother helped me put together a short CD of the music, and it sat in a drawer for 27 years.
Wow. It was, how do you say, in Swedish we say att det har legat och mognat. It has to become mature enough to bloom.
Because people couldn't understand what I was writing at the time in 1993, 30 years ago now. Yes, right, 25 years it was sitting in a drawer, the CD, and I still got it. And it was a few years later when I went to a geomancy weekend, a friend in Sussex, and he's got a stone circle on his site, and I was playing some of the tracks on the piano, and somebody said, "What are you playing?" And they told me the story of this journey from this other planet. And I thought, okay, interesting. And one of them and Richard, who owned the place, put their heads on mine. And this was extraordinary, Therese. I not only remembered, saw, but I was there. It was like, it was a portal in time to 5 million years ago on the planet, where our planet was going to explode through warfare. And I had to fly one of the 3 ships to Earth. And I could feel me walking across the sand. And so if you go to the music page, you'll see a video at the top. It's a 9-minute trailer that actually, if you know the whole story, it tells the whole story in 9 minutes. It's quite extraordinary, and it's got some of the music in it. And that's what, woke up, and I thought, yes, that's what that music was about that came through 5 years before. So, as I say, 5 years ago, it woke up. My nephew and niece, my brother's children, adult children, agreed to sort of produce it, with me. And Adam, who created the orchestrations, absolutely extraordinary. And my niece Eleni, who sings on it and actually did the video. It's just mind-blowing. You know the story through the emotion of the music. So if you want to know about my life, the whole story of the universe, it's there in those music tracks.
It sounds amazing. I know what I'm going to do right now when we hang up here.
Listen to the music,
yeah.
Put it on loud, and if you've got the chance to, well, most people stream. That's the thing. It's the quality of streaming is like MP3, but if you have it on a CD that not many people have anymore, and you play it on a real hi-fi system, oh my God, it's mind-blowing because it's full orchestration. So but anyway, we can talk, but it's
but I'll put the links that the listeners need
there.
in.
That'd be lovely. Therese, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Christian, and have a lovely day and lovely weekend, and I'll talk to you later because I can feel it. We're going to meet again.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you.